If you told me that I'd be sitting here talking about the success of Random Stats Guy 3 years ago, looking at a spreadsheet with just numbers and names, I think you're crazy. You don't know if you don't try, I guess. I think I take that into my business world, going like, you never know how far you could possibly go. I wake up in the morning, rando, create my content, then go to work for 8 to 5, do a bit of work at lunch, and from 5 till 12 in the morning, I'm still doing content. I thought Instagram virality was quick, but TikTok is another beast. My viral moment was just looking at the Warriors lineup against the Dragons and how many hyphenated names there were in the team list. I posted that and Roasty picked it up and shared it. And I remember I was sitting at work, put my phone away at 8 a.m. when I posted it, came back to my phone at 1 p.m. had 1,000 followers. That really kind of jetpacked me. I said I wouldn't tell anyone and be anonymous, and here I am 1,000 followers in thinking I made it. You know, my manager was like, I knew it was only a matter of time before you made the leap full time, because they just kept seeing me like pop up on their socials. That was the hardest thing to leave, because I think working at that agency made me realize that work is actually can be fun. Timmy from SC Playbook reached out to me. The last thing he said in there is like, I just thought you were ready to make that leap. That was a puller. As soon as I hung up, I was like, jumping on the Hello Sport podcast, I'm going to say the end of 2021, I think was the big push, getting on to About Even. That definitely projected me all the way through. They called up, they said, oh yeah, you'll be on camera and everything. And I was like, me on camera. That was definitely the big, overwhelming and big step for me. That was the next thing. So I knew that I could get followers through this, but I had absolutely no idea, like a revenue stream. I didn't see it as a revenue stream. I just saw it as a passion project.
All right, guys, I'll keep this intro short and sharp. We have Random Stats Guy on the podcast today. Another example of a person who started literally a random Instagram page for fun, posting random football stats, and over the space of a few years has turned that into a business. He quit his job this year and creates content full-time around his biggest passion. You guys know I love this stuff. And I feel like every time we have one of these content creators on, it gets even more niche. So a really good example, and he gives some really good advice on how to start, how to scale your business, and then monetize it as a content creator. So awesome episode, heaps of value in that. And just for the people who know and love Rando, you get to know a lot more about his story, and he's a legend of a bloke. So we'll get into it in a second. Before I do, can I ask for a few favors? If you're watching on YouTube, can you like this video? Literally takes you a second, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also hit the notification bell. I never say that, but it means every time we drop an episode, it'll pop up into your feed. And then if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, if you could leave us a 5-star review, I'd be super grateful. Really helps the podcast grow. We get bigger and better guests every week. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the podcast. All right, back with another episode. Nathan Corbett, you've just done the name thing. I've been doing some prep for you the last couple of weeks, and last week your Instagram said Rando. I'm like, I'm just going to call him Rando. But now he's docked himself even more. Nathan Corbett, aka Rando, aka Marcus Stoinis' younger brother. Welcome to the podcast, man. For those that don't know who you are, we've had similar guests on in the past, and everyone knows I love these episodes because you're another person, and every time I tend to have one of you kind of content creators on, it gets even more niche every time. So it's just a really good example for anyone listening out there. Whatever your passion is, there is a way to make that your full-time gig, to turn whatever job that you're doing, your corporate job or you're on the tools, into your dream job. There's a real clear path for that. And essentially all you've done is turn an Instagram page that you didn't even almost start if it wasn't for your missus into your career. So we'll go through all that. But Nath, welcome to the podcast and thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that the change to Nathan Corbett was purely for Meta, just to get verified, because I've been scared shitless with the amount of people who've just lost their accounts out of nowhere. So I've had to make a change. I even had to put my face up for the first time ever as well on my profile picture just to get verified. But I am Marcus Stoinis' younger brother, so I'll take that.
As for the people watching on YouTube can see, clearly you are. Because that's pretty Timmy, I still know podcast page up, still no SE Playbook page up. So yeah, man, they're cracking down. So be careful if you got a page out there. I think verification, people are like, oh, I don't want to pay for it, but we're having an issue actually on one of my pages, and we just had to request support and get live chat. You need to chat to someone 2 minutes, so definitely worth it. But becoming Random Stats Guy, this is kind of the journey we're going to go on. You've gone full time this year, which is awesome. Congratulations on that. We'll get through and we'll catch up on that moment. There's so many questions I have about that. But just for the people listening, walk us through what you were doing before Random Stats Guy, what life looked like and what you're doing for work.
Yeah, so before starting Random Stats Guy, I was working at a digital marketing agency. Worked there for 3 years, and I was living in Gold Coast for 5 years before that after I finished my uni degree. Got my experience, came back down to Sydney. That was the goal. Just thought I just needed experience on top of my degree. And then, just been working with clients like Pet Barn, Destination New South Wales for a good 3 years, which was, takes your toll if you work in agency. You totally understand. But I loved every bit of it. My team was absolutely amazing. And I think that was the hardest thing to leave, because I think working at that agency, it made me realise that work can be fun. Whereas when the 2 years started, I was in like a smaller business, only 5 people who were twice my age. So it's completely different work cultures. But yeah, it was a tough one to leave, but I'm glad I'm right here in this position.
There's an interesting moment we'll talk about on that journey. But talk to me, what happened? What was the Gold Coast move about?
I think it was just a complete change for me. Born and raised in Sydney my whole life. So
Beaches boy.
Beaches boy as well. Not good at surfing, but could get a tan. So that was good.
Sport,
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say that. But no, I decided to move to Gold Coast. Was doing my degree of business at UTS. My uncle had gone to Bond University up there on the Gold Coast, and I was supposed to go to Bond originally, but you had to fill out paperwork, and the way the UTS admission was for me, it was just kind of like just rolled into uni, into business like everyone else in my grade did. So kind of followed the herd there, spent 3 months doing that. Hated business. It just wasn't for me. Accounting was the one that definitely pushed me through the roof, and just bounced off. And a lot of mates also left. And for me at that time, I was like, I feel like a failure for dropping out of my course. So when I saw everyone else kind of jumping off, I was like, okay, I just haven't found the right one for me.
Isn't that interesting though? Like I felt like a failure, and I feel like that holds so many people back. And it's like, as you get the further away you get out of university and into the workforce, and then you start your own thing, your whole perspective shifts. But it's like, it almost goes back to so much pressure you put on yourself, like picking your year 12 subjects, and then doing the exact right degree straight after. Like, you should put so much stress on that. And like pretty much everyone will agree now, like it doesn't really matter. So I think like you always figure out your own path. But so you go from there, you go to uni. Like, did you finish uni up at the Gold Coast before you came back?
Yeah, absolutely. So the beautiful thing about Bond was that it was accelerated. So trimesters, so done in 2 years. So finished basically when everyone else finished their 3-year business course. So absolutely loved doing it. So I completely changed from business into sports management, because I've always loved sport, grew up playing sport, wanted to be a rugby league player when I grew up. Was really close to achieving that dream, but just obviously wasn't good enough, like the most of us. So yeah, I kind of wanted to stay in that sports realm. Thought I could do sports business through my business degree, just wasn't feeling it. So I kind of just moved to Gold Coast, did the dream subject in one of my favourite places in Australia, Gold Coast. So yeah. That was cool.
I saw you playing highlights. Some pretty good footage there. Like, how much footy did you play growing up? Because you spent some like time at North Sydney Bears, and you're in the South Academy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was towards 15 onwards. I was just playing. Just school footy really. So 2 times a week, nothing too serious. My mate from school said, let's try out for North Sydney Bears, because they had an open trial back then. So I took advantage of that, worked out for me, got into the Harold Matt system, and I went from obviously school training into school training on top of rugby league training. So that turned into like 6 times a week through a 5-day period, which was a lot more intense. And then, so basically it got more intense each time. With my school, I couldn't have an exemption from school sport.
Okay.
So I had to play rugby league and then play school sport at the same time. So on Saturdays, what would happen is that I'd play G's basketball at 9 a.m. and then by 12 p.m. I was playing Latrell Mitchell. So it was it was definitely a different scope of talent coming at me. But yeah.
I can't imagine why you didn't make it coming up against
Yeah,
guys,
literally.
Right?
But no, it was good fun. But like 9 times a week in my HSC, it was bloody intense.
Yeah, that's a bit much. So talk to me about some of those, like, obviously you got pretty close, like so many do, like to get even the level you got, it's like a small percentage of people even make it that far, right? And then it's like this, like 1% of the rep footy players even make it through the first grade. But you've got some pretty good stories about like coming up against like Pappy. And who's some of like the more household name players that you played against, and any interesting stories from there?
Well, I started with in Harold Matts. Like, we had like a team of the week sheet that I made, and like my name is just above Nathan Cleary's name, which at the time I didn't think it meant anything.
Yeah.
But luckily I kept the magazine and looked at the photo there because it was the only time I made the team of the week. So I kept it for that reason. Then you see like Nick Kotrick up there as well, Sifa Talakai as well. It's crazy. But I think the big one was the step into the SG Ball. We played up against this Roosters side at home with names like Latrell Mitchell, Connor Watson, I think was in that team, Angus Crichton, Ruben Porter, who's just made it through the Tigers ranks eventually.
He's pretty he's older compared to, and he's just had a great game.
Yeah, literally. And he was gun, and I was wondering when he would pop up, and now you just saw him against the Cowboys rip and tear. Also had Joey Manu in there. Like, the team was completely stacked. Paul Momorovsky, and they beat us 72-6 in a 60-minute game. So, and
That's rough.
I don't know why, but like, 4 years later, New South Wales Rugby League put up the stats for that game. They ran for 2 kilometres more than us. It was crazy. 2Ks. It was but it just felt like every time they caught the ball, they were running up at us. So that was crazy. And then, like, growing up in the Souths Academy, I spent 3 months there. Growing up in there, but like seeing the likes of like Keon Kaloma-Tungi, Emre Gula, Cam Murray as well. I connected really well with Cam Murray because we were both GPS boys at that time. He was playing for Newington, so we used to face off each other. And he did the exact same program whilst also training with Newington. And he was like, it's just crazy and just got to go with it. And I just couldn't keep up with that in the end.
He's only made it a little bit further with his playing career.
Just slightly.
That's mental, man. And talk to me about, because you're someone that's, and we'll talk about a little bit later on in the podcast. We'll build some context first. You've always kind of been a little bit passionate about statistics and tracking all that and reading. I believe you even had some KPIs on your own performance. Like, if I take this many runs, I'm probably going to play a good game. But where did like your love for statistics or tracking these things first start? What was the inspiration for what eventually would become Random Stats Guy on Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it goes back to the annual. I'm not too sure if you've ever seen the annual book written by David Middleton, someone who I, look to emulate, like the type of stats and try and get to his position. I kind of used to read those books growing up, and it'd have all the try scorers in there, all the stats on all the players. And I used to recreate that book specifically, like my own edition. I was a loser at school. There we go. I'll say it. So basically after school, I'd just kind of just write up all the stats on all the games and then create this book, go to Officeworks, get it stapled, punched. Still got them in my room.
Wow.
So yeah, I was a bit of a nut for like just enjoying like all the stats and progressions. And I think just seeing like the try scorer progression from like top try scorers, something as little as that, just really made me excited about stats.
Have you gone back and digitalized any of those old books?
I have not. I only did 2, and then I stopped. I think I got a life in 2015, and that's when I stopped doing that.
You'll have to, when you hit 100K on Instagram or something to celebrate, you got to go through and you got to rebuild.
I will now.
That's a good piece of content. So what was the conversation? I know your partner. She was like the inspiration that told you, hey, like this spreadsheet you've put together, turn that into an Instagram page. What made her say that? Like, what were you just putting that Excel together about?
Yeah, so the Excel sheet came about during COVID. So, so many sliding doors moments. If COVID didn't happen, then we're not here talking.
Yeah.
So during that period, I was, just starting to get into betting on each game, and was just a bit sick of just going off the vibe, going like, I think this guy will score. So I started to compile, while the game was in lockdown, compile all the stats and all the try scorers from 2017 to 2020, just to get a 3-year period. And then started to, basically collate every game, open up every game in NRL.com, see what the weather was like, see who scored, what times they scored, and everything like that, and build it from the ground up. By the way, when I was in... This is very important, just so I'm not an absolute loser. I was the only one still left in Gold Coast. All my friends had graduated by that point and moved down. I was still staying up for the 2 years experience, and then obviously with the lockdown happening, everyone was gone. My girlfriend was moved back down to Sydney as well on top of that. So had a lot of downtime.
It's funny, and I get why like you frame that, but also it's like, who's laughing now? This is your job.
Literally, yeah,
Like,
I know.
you got to nerd out, find the things that you love nerding out on, and go hard.
Yeah.
Like that's the key to happiness in life. And then like again, as we'll unpack in this podcast, you can figure out a way to make them your livelihood as well. And then you've really unlocked the key to happiness and the key to life. Like it is really a game, so you laugh about it, but like, dude, if you're whether it be gaming, whether you go it's makeup, whether it be whatever sport or anything like that, like if you find something that you feel like spending all of your free time on, do it. Don't let people like discourage you as well, because you're living proof of what can happen when you trust that and you follow that.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, like when I was making it at that point, I just thought this is just for me and maybe I'll just share it to mates, sort of thing. So basically I collated all that information and then just started betting and found out that it was like working a bit more than, I mean, obviously not
Just
100%,
going off vibes,
but yeah, much better than going off vibes. And just sticking to that process, I just kept that going. And then when I was about to move back down in 2021, that's when I like showed my girlfriend and I'm like, oh, this is what I've created. And she's like, what the fuck? This is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And she was like, you should definitely put that on socials. And I'm like, I'm not too sure how to do any of that. I'm not really like social media savvy at that point. I did have a little bit of a creative mind, but wasn't too sure how I could turn the data into something visual.
So when you say you went back from 2017 to 2020, how, like, what's your process for that? Like, was it all like copy and pasting into it? Like, how did that actually work? Because I'm like, how are you finding stats? Like, legit, like your name, random stats guy.
Yeah.
Like, how are you just finding these random Rogaz stats?
I think the thing was that, like, even when I was doing the pool, I'd be like, oh, this guy scored 4 times when it's rained or something like that. And I'd just say it to, like, you know, my dad or my brother, just going like, oh, I'm backing this guy because of that reason.
Yeah.
I think that's where I kind of found the random stuff, because I had all the different factors about every single game. Like if, I don't know, Matt Checken, he's retired now, but at the time, the referee, if he's reffing, then they have a much bigger chance of winning and all that sort of stuff. Or if it's 20 degrees, then this team has a bigger chance of winning, like just random stuff like that I saw somehow come off a couple more times than I thought it would.
A bit conspiratorial, but like, what do you as someone that actually looks at this data, because every team has their refs that can't believe we've got him, we've already lost. But like, if you've got a big enough sample size, say like 15, 20 games plus, and it's like this team only wins like 10% with this ref, where does that come from? Or is it just like it's a shit team? Like,
yeah, exactly. Well, that's what you got to really look into. Like my stats completely mean nothing to like the Bulldogs of this year or the Broncos of last year or the Warriors of last year. I remember I think I tipped against the Broncos 8 weeks in a row when they won 8 straight games. Like I just kept finding like different stats of their shitness back 3 years ago, because that's just what you can go off the stats. So you definitely got to take that into consideration. And I think over the last year or two, that's where I've kind of made up a bit more ground and realizing I need to just not listen to direct stats but make sense of it all.
Yeah, so your Excel sheet, you've got all the stats from all the games back to 2017, and then you started 2020, and then obviously it's current up to now. Talk to me about that conversation with your missus. You like turn this into a page. What does that process look like? Because that's where a lot of people get stuck. They'll have an idea, they might have an interest, and they've got a lot of information in their head because they've been interested in this book series or whatever for the last 6 years. How did you then take that idea and then turn it into a page and then like start that content creation process?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a tough part. It was just kind of like so basically what I was talking about before when I was like, oh, I just pulled this stat about this certain player. Maybe I'll just start with that. And then I've obviously got the team list and stuff in there, just finding like little niches on top of that. So the first week, luckily I had my jobs Photoshop that I kind of used and abused for a little bit, just to create the graphics and stuff, because I didn't know what Canva was at that point. So I was kind of just editing along on that platform, just picking out like the little stats, and some of them just didn't really hit as well. So I had to go deeper into what I call the rabbit hole to find even deeper and deeper stats. I think like when I created the account also, I didn't want to be known. I just wanted to be, if this goes shit, I can just delete it and nobody knows it was me. So I was really paranoid about not posting on my account, which I've done many times.
Accidentally
without like before revealing myself.
Yeah.
But that's why I chose.
Did any of your mates clue on? Like they said,
No
like
one.
it was up for like a minute, and they're like, "What?"
No. I don't think.
I just
Thankfully,
really saw this good stat. I wanted to
Yeah,
share.
I know, because I didn't know how to schedule stuff, Meta Business and stuff. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
use, so I was just going on Instagram, and then I'd be like, oh fuck, wrong page. So maybe like some people saw for 30 seconds some random stat come up, but luckily no one kind of brought it back to me. But that's why I went with the random stats guy. So I was completely incognito. No one knew who I was at all. And I could delete it, and I felt comfortable that I can delete it at any point if it has 50 followers after a year. So
just a quick one from me. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'd know that after scaling Happy Skin Co. to over $10 million per year, I spent close to 18 months creating the Viral Brand Builder program, which teaches someone with zero experience how to launch and scale their very own e-commerce brand. With over 100 training videos and direct access to me, including one-on-one calls, you'll be guided throughout the entire process. Now, we already have a bunch of incredible results from students that are making multiple 5 and 6 figures per month. So if you want to learn how to build a business that has the potential to completely change your life, then click the link in the description and book in an application call today. Spots are limited as you'll be speaking directly to me. So hopefully I'll chat to some of you soon. But until then, let's get back to the podcast. It's interesting though, like why we, there's like people talk about why they don't start the business or start their content channel or whatever it is. And they talk about the fear of failure, but I think it's more the fear of failing publicly.
yeah,
Right? Like that fear of judgment. But it's like, if you don't try, you're always going to be in the same position you're in
100%.
without making that jump. So it's like, talk about sliding doors moments. If you didn't first, make that page, and then you didn't first go on the the About Even podcast, like all these little things that might have been scary at that time, and, something new and uncomfortable, your body gives you these feelings because it wants to protect you from that. If you don't, fight through that and do that one little uncomfortable thing, that opens a whole door to the whole new realm of possibilities. And now it's like all this stuff you do, which we'll get into, it's just another day.
Yeah, literally.
You know what I mean?
And I'll get to the Hello Sport Boys in a second, because that was another thing as well, about, revealing identity. But I think it goes back to the first jump I made was moving to Gold Coast and completely changing my life there, where I was a bit introverted going through school, kept pretty much to myself. I still do enjoy my company a lot more than spending it with others.
It's nice though.
It is so
I'm
nice.
an extrovert, and I need time to just hang out by myself.
I know.
And it's the best.
Yeah, it's so good. So I think that was a big jump, because moving over there, I was in a good environment because everyone else had just moved from different parts. There was no cliques and no groups. So that was really easy to make friends, and definitely gave me enough self-confidence in myself to talk and just say it how it is and have my own like carefree sort of vibe. And I think that was a big point where I just didn't care anymore about what other people thought of me.
That's really cool.
Whereas during school, I'm like, everyone's known me from like I said, I went to the
6
same
years old,
school,
yeah.
6 years old all the way to 18. Like if I change something up, someone's going to be like, what's this guy's go sort of vibe? So going to Gold Coast, I could start fresh and create my own identity, and that definitely helped me from a mental health point of view as well, to be your own man. And we talk about the freedom.
100%.
Like it's crazy.
That's a really good point. Like changing your environment and getting out of it can like make it a lot easier for you to do that. Because I remember like you have those moments and you think, oh, I can't do that. That's too not me. People are going to be like, what are you doing? And get back in your bucket and stuff. But you spoke about, if this doesn't work, I've got 50 followers in a year, I can just delete it, which is still good. And when we talk about when like I really encourage people to explore their own things, if that is something that's holding you back at the start, if like a lot of the times there is going to be a way to do it anonymously, you better like just start that way. And then as you start to get more comfortable, you can make that change. But luckily for you, it wasn't 50 followers at the end of the year. Talk to me about your first viral moment. It was pretty early on in your page, right?
I think I got really lucky. And this was talking about like going from like, okay, like random stats around try scorers isn't really kind of, or like just in general isn't kind of working. So I went dug deeper, and I always get these little things when something happens in a game or something's about to happen in a game. I'm like, I'm going to check it out. I'm going to see if that has any stat to go with it. So if like, for instance, what was recent? Like if for Val Holmes scored 100 tries the other week, 4 weeks ago, but he'd kicked like 1,000 points too. And I'm like, how many players have scored 100 tries and 1,000 points? And he was only the 11th player to do so ever in the history. And none of the like Fox Sports didn't bring up, they just said he scored 100 tries. And I was like, I feel like there's a stat to this or something more to it. So I dug deep, and not saying that was my viral moment 4 years later. My viral moment was just looking at the Warriors lineup against the Dragons and how many hyphenated names there were in the team list. And I kind of went back and just looked through all the team lists that I had up in 2017, which is a good starting point for like, you know, what they say, the two dads team. So that's when I started seeing all the hyphenated names. Yeah, sorry, it took a while to probably get.
Is this your super coach?
Yeah. But like, yeah. So I saw that, the hyphenated names, and I was like, there's like 6 of them in this team. That's so much. I've never seen that before. And then I realized it was like the equal record with like Penrith back in 2018.
Has that been beaten since? Because I feel like we see him a lot more now, right?
Last week it got beaten. The Warriors did it themselves.
They took their own record.
They took their own record off them. So I posted that, and Roasty picked it up and shared it. And I remember I was sitting at work, just put my phone away at 8 a.m. when I posted it, came back to my phone at 1 p.m., had 1,000 followers.
Like, what?
And at that point, they didn't have like the story mention, like you get up if someone shares your story.
Yeah.
So I had no idea who the hell shared this. I was like, what the hell's going on? No one tagged me. It just went up, and then...
You're like, I'm fucking good at this.
I know, exactly. Oh, well, look at me. Look, what am I doing here?
This is easy. I should have done this ages ago.
Then I overpromised work that I could get them 1,000 followers like that.
Any client, that's it. Yeah. Right, I'll grow your account.
But that was crazy because once you get a certain amount of following, you get trusted a lot more, and you mean a lot more to people who come across your account with like 250 followers, for instance. So that really kind of jetpacked me into 1,000. I think that's when I shared it with my mates. Like I have a super coach group chat, and I was like, oh guys, I'm this guy at 1,000 followers. Like I said I wouldn't tell anyone and be anonymous, and here I am 1,000 followers in thinking I made it.
But it's good, like that public accountability as well, when it is scary, but it's like people are either side of this. They say, don't tell people your goals. And people say, tell people your goals, because then it's another layer of accountability for you, right? You'll let yourself down often before you'll let other people down, or you let yourself down publicly. It goes back to that thing again. But speaking of hyphenated names, is like Alofi Khan Pereira, did he break that record? I saw he was like close to fastest person to 40 tries ever, or what's the story?
Only the 8th player to score 40 tries in under 40 games, which is absolutely insane.
And in a Titans team that haven't, like this year they're better, but in a Titans team that haven't been that good, realistically.
Yeah. Literally, the last 2 years he just finds a way, and he's been in and out of the team as well. It's just crazy. And it hasn't been done since like 1962. So it's not like you're seeing everyone, like you see AJ and stuff, and you think he has those try scoring records, but not at all.
And you used to see, like back in the day, seeing old scores, it'd be like 76-7 and stuff. Like, you don't really get as many.
No, not at all. Yeah, I know. I mean, we had that the Tigers Cowboys last year, where
72 or something.
Yeah, literally, like the Tigers put their biggest win on, and then bloody 4 weeks later, the Cowboys put their biggest win on the Tigers, and it's just unbelievable.
Something about the Tigers Cowboys matchups that just produces a lot of points.
A lot of points, far out.
So to go back to your story, talk about you get the 1,000 followers, you walk into your boss's room, you're like, that's it, I quit. I'm going for
Nah, not at all. I think that was the next thing. So I knew that I could get followers through this, but I had absolutely no idea, like a revenue stream. I didn't see it as a revenue stream. I just saw it as a passion project.
Yeah, did you even at that point? Because now it's more like, I've had a bunch of the boys on the podcast, Guru, Denon, Timmy. Like, it's clear for people starting now that there's a path for this. But was this just a random fun thing for you then?
Absolutely. And that's why I never set like any goals for the page. Like, I just, obviously the first year you want to see how you go, and then obviously the next year I was like, I want to get the same amount of followers in the same amount of time, and then
double the account.
Yeah, double the account. So that was kind of my game plan from that point. But at no point, people were saying I'd pay for your stats, like if you put them out, but I just was like, I don't know how to
package that up.
Yeah.
So you start the account in 2021, like posting. Was that like you start in the middle of footy seat, like at the start of the season?
Yeah, the first round I just got in just for that week.
Yeah, nice. So then you obviously you've gone full time this year. That's about 3 years in between.
Yeah.
How was that process of managing that work-life balance? Well, work like rando, and trying to have some sort of a life. Like, what was that like navigating that? And when did it start to pick up and demand more and more of your time?
I think like the first 3 months we were still in and out of lockdown. I only moved back to Sydney, in May 2021. So I had about 3 months with the account where I didn't really know like how much time I actually was spending on it, because I just go home. I was the only one home.
Everything was a blur.
Yeah, everything was a blur. Then I moved back down to Sydney, changed jobs into agency work. And the good thing about the Rando account was that that was my switch off. Like I would get on the bus home and just go straight to rando and not worry about a Slack message or an email or anything like that. So that was my cutoff. But I didn't know how to cut off from rando. And I'd get home, still on my computer, have dinner, like kind of be in the room, but not really present. Which I think definitely, I'd still probably don't do it too great now, which is even worse because I don't have like a little switch off button at the moment, but yeah, I'll get to that.
See, that's like, I think it's really important to have you out there. And that's why I've like, as I mentioned when we were going and grab a coffee, like I have work and business, which demands so much of my time. And sometimes it's pretty much wake up to go to bed. But like I've realized only in the last year or two that sport is my outlet. So that's like how it was your switch off. Now it's your job. Now it gets real muddy between, am I working 24/7? When do I take a rest here? And I think that's fine. Like I know you've spoken about it. It's like your partner's quite understanding about what it takes. And it's like to do what you do, think about how many random pages there are about sporting teams. You're already in the elite in terms of like the small percentage that is somehow made to turn that into a job. Yeah. Like to turn that into a career, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And when I started, I think the first thing I did was type in NRL stats on Instagram, Facebook and see, is there another existing page? How are they doing it? I couldn't find anyone on Instagram. So I was like, okay, there's definitely that little niche there. And also part of me was like, maybe it's not there for a reason. It's not getting any engagement.
True.
But I just took that on and I think that was the niche that needed. And I've seen just like different pages get around like random stats as well. Not that I don't care. Stats are stats. Like if someone takes a stat or has a stat, like go for it. It's there for the taking. I just pull it in.
Are there any examples of like cool pages that are doing something with any American sports or like European sports, anything like that?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones that I look forward to or look up to is like ESPN stats and stuff like that, where they go like first player to like run for 100, like those really niche ones about like 100 meters or throw for 100 meters and stuff like that. So I went over to the US in 2022 and then just basically because I couldn't be bothered to watch reruns on TV, I just put on SportsCenter and just the stats that they came up with on that show just absolutely revitalized it because you get like so generic stats in rugby league. Like no one really talks about like someone making 5,000 tackles in their career or something like that. So I think that's kind of where I like feel inspired to break out and find random stats around that.
So what was the tipping point for you? Obviously like a big pivotal moment, which we'll talk about in a second, is going full time. But where was, obviously you don't just go from like 1,000 followers to going full time like that. What was the tipping point for you in that lead up to going full time where things started to grow faster? Was it getting on the podcast and stuff? What kind of took you to the next level?
Yeah, definitely. I think jumping on the Hello Sport podcast in the end of 2021, or was it 2022? I think I'm going to say the end of 2021, I think was the big push, getting on to about even. That definitely projected me all the way through. And I like started watching like Hello Sport and Bloke in a Bar and I just listened to that content or on repeat, like absolutely love the stuff that they were doing. So yeah, that definitely projected me into the Punters and Dribblers group, which is a massive Facebook group that they've got.
Yeah.
And just that's, I think, the explosion, because that's when I went from being just faceless and they called up, they said, oh yeah, you'll be on camera and everything. And I was like, fuck, me on camera. That was definitely the big overwhelming and big step for me, because I feared having my face out. But even though I had I think I had 10K by that point, I just was too scared to put my name to it. It was tougher than, I know people go like, you're dumb. Like it's just should be the easiest choice to go, yes, I want to do it.
Yeah.
But I was definitely a bit nervous at the start.
Where do you think those nerves and that sort of like hesitancy came from to get on camera?
I think it's just like goes back to, pre me moving to the Gold Coast and stuff and having that introverted sense and just thinking about what people would have thought about me, stuff that I've like completely clouded out of my mind for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, started to scramble back a little bit, but I think, all my mates listen to Hello Sport. All my mates were I would look at my Instagram account through my personal Instagram account, find out that there was 30 people already following Random Stats Guy without even knowing it was me.
That's cool.
So I kind of had to put all that into perspective, and then obviously my girlfriend saying you're stupid if you say no as well on top of that, because she's like the realist behind everything. Where every time I doubt myself, I just look to her and she goes like, do it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Because you said you were like a bit more of an introvert, right? Do you feel like in terms of your confidence, in terms of public communication and everything like that has grown a lot since putting yourself in those situations?
100%. Definitely being able to communicate a lot better. I think like this, like even the first couple of, weeks of just talking and stuff. And obviously Tom and Eddie's humor is on a different level. Like they are so in tune with each other. It is crazy. So it's like going like, how do I get a word in here? Or how do I get
Pick your moments.
Yeah, how do I pick my moments and stuff? And I know I don't need to be the funny one, so I can I'm just a stats guy. I just do stats. But yeah, picking your moments in that. And at that point, it was just the three of us doing about even. Oh yeah, and Sebo as well. So the four of us doing it. So yeah.
That's funny because we've had you on, Guru, Timmy, Denon, and those guys are 50 meters away. We've spoken about having them on from time to time, and like we will at some point. But that also is me just thinking like, fuck. How do I have what will that sort of more of a serious conversation, not serious, but like how will that play out with, I don't know.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like their humor is so unique, like you said, but it's just fucking hilarious.
Yeah. And they're so down to earth guys. They're fucking awesome blokes.
Yeah, that's cool, bro. So talk to me about that decision. Now things have ramped up. You started to grow. When was the moment where it became an option and a consideration for you to go full time?
I think starting to look more seriously into how I could monetize. I think that's when I started thinking, okay, I'm at 20K now. People know who I am. Like I can monetize this. And I knew I'm still working out Patreon. I was calling it Patron for a long time there. So that's how close I've come. But just trying to work out how can I monetize this? How can I get people who obviously have been consuming my content from a free perspective, like how can I give them value? How could my page give value, I guess, in a sense? And I think working through in a digital marketing agency gave me all the tools about how to better use a spreadsheet and how I could use it more efficiently because 2021, basically for 2021, I was manually doing everything. I was copying the team lists and stuff like that. Wasn't pulling anything, just literally manual, type in the results. Now I've got it all. Like game happens, stats are in. Yeah. And I wouldn't have learnt that if I didn't do my agency role whatsoever. So I think that made me realize I can work more efficiently. I can provide data at the right time, whereas I'd be like scrabbling to get stuff for me by Friday or Thursday when the kickoff came.
Yeah. So you went full time. Was it like sort of around the start of this season?
Yep.
And when did you start your Patreon? Was it at that time or a little bit before?
A little after. So I think the big jump was that, Timmy from SC Playbook reached out to me in February about working under him part-time for 3 days. And I remember it was like I was super busy at work on a Friday when he called and I kind of just ducked into a meeting room really quickly, had a call. And my mind was just thinking about I've got to get all these socials out. I've got to set this campaign live. I've got to monitor these budgets and everything like that. So I wasn't really, when I was talking to him, I wasn't really in the focus of leaping out at that point. Got all the information down and heard about it. And then I was like, oh yeah, it just doesn't seem for me, when really that was my, safety net, I guess, to jump out and go on my own. And the last thing he said in there is like, oh, I just thought you were ready to make that leap. And that was a puller. As soon as I hung up, I was like, fuck, that definitely.
Timmy, look at
Timmy,
that
the motivational stuff, literally.
He got you at the end, right?
Literally, the hook at the end. But I kind of just left that as a no and then talked about it with family and friends. And, my mum was like a big supporter, going like, yes, you should go full time, even if you didn't have this sort of background, didn't have like that safety net. So yeah, I think I messaged him on the Monday, 4 days after, let it all sink in and realize, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it part-time.
Yeah.
Because I was going nowhere at that point. I talked about getting a Patreon for a year and a half and getting my shit together and doing it. And I just never had the time to actually sit down and focus on it in between because I'm too busy. I'd wake up in the morning, rando, create my content, then go to work for 8 to 5, do a bit of work at lunch. Then from 5 till 12 in the morning, I'm still doing content and not really doing anything towards monetizing
Yeah.
my work. It was just kind of just create content for social media. So yeah.
What was Timmy's reaction when you sent him the message on Monday?
He had a few interviews as well coming up, but thankfully for me, he sat me down. We had a meeting on the next Friday and found a way, and I obviously made a promise that I'd quit my job, which I hate doing that. I hate like letting people down. I hate the whole concept of rejection. So I hated letting them down.
Regardless which side you're
on.
on.
Regardless which side, like letting people down. It felt like breaking up with work because, you know, my manager were like really close. So she's so nice. And it was just like the toughest conversation to have.
How did that go down? I'm always interested what the response is like whenever people quit their job, whether it be a content creator or a business owner.
Yeah, she was really, I think the beauty about my agency is how grateful they were. Like, you know, my boss would buy my merch and wear my hat around as well. Cool. So it's pretty cool. So they were really nice about it and could see that, like, you know, like I was always going to be on that trajectory. And, you know, my manager was like, I knew it was only a matter of time before you made the leap full time, because they just kept seeing me like pop up on their socials, for instance, and go like, holy crap. So yeah, I had the full support from everyone. So that was really good and made it so much easier rather than like, you know, getting the you won't make it sort of thing, vibe and stuff like that. So was really grateful.
And what was the sort of stuff that you were doing for Timmy, similar to what you were doing at the agency, or less marketing stuff, more like...
Less ads, so I don't have to wake up every morning and hope I didn't spend over budget, which is good. But yeah, it's more like just getting all the socials up and just basically running the socials, making sure the posts are all up at times.
You got the account banned. What have
Literally,
you done?
I know exactly. I'm taking him down. No, that was a shock, and hopefully we can get that thing back up. But it goes back to the meta verification as well, like far out.
But how do you verify a page that isn't a person?
I know, and you have to change your name and everything. It's like, it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I sent him. I know it's still not up, but I might send him a message. I don't. Yeah. I've obviously had like relationships with Facebook for a while, but it can be really difficult because it's such a big company to like actually get a straight answer out of someone. They just 100%. Get bounced around and things. So.
Yeah. I mean, I know like the power of like having a meta rep, obviously through work and stuff like that. So that's why I see the importance of getting verified and stuff, because it's so much easier to deal with someone who's there for you rather than just being, you know, one of a million accounts and then going like,
weird. Why would it can't get taken? Like, it's clearly not impersonating. Anyway,
it's not impersonating anyone. I know they're funny about the Olympics, but Timmy doesn't post anything about the Olympics.
About like all the content licensing and usage and stuff.
But yeah, I mean, we'd post similar stuff and, you know, crazy. Absolutely
That's why Nathan Corbett had to come out.
Yeah, Nathan Corbett's out. Yeah. And so, yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable. But like that shocked me. I was like waking up every day and going like, is it still there? Is it still there? I posted a post on Wednesday and it got no engagement. Like I usually post at 7:30, woke up at 9, looked at my post, 1 like, and I'm like, what's happening here? What's happening here? And like reposted it, got no engagement again. And I was like, uh-oh. But luckily that was just a little blimp, obviously.
Yeah, I'm having a glitch with, I don't know if you've seen this at all. I'm having a glitch with like both like my personal account and the podcast page. When I post a clip, and because something we changed, instead of adding the music in the edit, adding it natively on Instagram has been working better. Every time now, and I actually spoke to my meta person today, and they gave me a few, you know, standard dot points, which I've already fucking tried. But so every time I post something and like, you know, your controls, I put the music level like a 5, just so it's like some background music. Yeah. I post it and then the all the way to the top and the original audio is all the way down.
Oh, really? I get that.
That was been happening since last week. I posted a clip last week from Mel's account, my partner, and it was fine. And then I did it this week and then I'm like, okay, it won't work. I'll go to Mel's phone again. And it's now doing it on her phone.
It's crazy.
I don't know. I might need some help, you. But I can't post podcast clips at the moment. I might have to get Joe to do it. It's really annoying.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, it's an interesting system. Like the algorithm itself is another kettle of fish. But yeah.
So I want to talk to you, get some of your thoughts on growing account as well. So it's like, obviously you've grown completely organically to like 35,000 followers based on one random niche thing, like rugby league statistics, right? What's some of the key principles that you think enabled you to grow? Was obviously consistency is one thing, but like collaborated posts, like what do you put down some of the pillars that have allowed you to organically grow your page?
I think collaboration is big, and I think the greatest thing that Instagram's installed is that little collab thing that you can do,
so
where you're
good.
not just tagging someone and they're sharing your story. You can now collab, and they can be on both your pages.
Yep.
I think that's really big to growing your page, and that's all about creating a community. And you know, you got to remember, you started at 0 followers. Like, don't be afraid if someone with 250 followers says, "Can we collab this?" It's not really it doesn't harm you at all, unless it's terrible content, obviously. But for the most part, it isn't. It's decent and it relates to your business. Definitely collaboration can help you grow faster than anything more. Because I used to be of the impression that, like, I don't really want to collab because I want to keep my Instagram grid so
clean,
aesthetic and stuff like that. So I think collaboration is definitely the big part, and that consistency, posting consistently. Reels work as well. If I had the time to do more reels, I definitely would, because I think that really works well on TikTok. I thought Instagram virality was quick, but TikTok is another beast.
Yeah, so on that, so you're posting across all channels now that you're on TikTok as well. How is putting your face to and doing some video change the trajectory of the account rather than just like your graphic statistics?
Yeah, I think it's a lot better. People know, I mean, like, first couple of videos, people go like, "Who the hell's this?" Stay anonymous.
What's Marcus Stoinis doing talking about rugby league
literally stuff? What's his brother doing? But yeah, I think definitely putting your face to it. And I do my tips video every Thursday, and that just keeps churning away and getting more followers on top of that. So I find that a lot more, and just bring out your personality. I think I was so busy of just going stats and shut up. No one cares about like your personality. But I think this year particularly, you know, I put up a photo of me going 8 from 8 from tips, even though the Warriors Manly game was a draw. It still got a tick.
Still got tick.
And then put up like that little Yachty video of him like going like that with the AI stuff. That just went off and went nuts. And I was like, I can't obviously do this the whole time because that's not my page. But just finding little bits to, you know, be able to show my personality, and that I am fun and love to, like, you know, love to be funny and stuff like that, because the stats are usually pretty straightforward and serious.
It's the same thing. And the reason I wanted to ask, it's the same thing with business, and like something that's working really good in the business space for like startup brands, again, don't have massive marketing budgets, the organic content virality factor of just like documenting your journey, the highs, the lows, the funny moments. And so many people that, you know, might see themselves as introverted, like themselves, I don't want to put myself to camera. I get it, and not everyone has to, but you're closing the door on so much opportunity to grow, so much opportunity to get your content seen by new people. Like, if you post a video, if you post a reel versus like a static, you're going to be much more likely to show that post to non-followers than just like just the static thing. So I think, again, I can't stress this enough. If you're like hesitant about it, look, it's fine. There are other ways to be successful, whether it just be growing a page or succeeding with the startup business, but really consider it and consider the reasons that you don't want to do it. Maybe you're just like protecting yourself and you don't want to go into the uncomfortable areas, because it's like so many amazing things happen beyond that point. So I think it's really good to be able to do that. But talk to me as well. I want to know and so people can start to understand what that might look like for them. What does like an average week look like for you with all the stuff you're doing? You know, a couple stuff with Tim, like a couple days with the playbook stuff, you're doing content there, all the rando stuff, Patreon, you do some radio gigs and stuff.
Yep.
Give us like a rundown of an average week so people can see what it looks like to be a full-time content creator.
Yeah, I mean, on Monday, basically hit the ground running. I've definitely learnt it over time as well. I think the first couple of weeks, I was like, I've got all the time in the world, when really I have much less time than I thought I did. But I'll start with, you know, collating all the data and putting them into, you know, I've got the Patreon analysis that has all the stats on every player for each game, last 5, team records and stuff. So basically I make sure that all the numbers are in there. I go through every game, every try, where they scored, how they scored it, for NRL and now NRLW. So that takes up a fair bit. Obviously do my team of the weeks as well. So that takes about like an hour and stuff to collate all that information on top of it. So by that point, it's about 5 p.m. and I've done so much work on that sense. But I've just set up the Patreon on top of that. So I usually try and have an early night that night, because then Tuesday's absolutely hectic. I try and make sense of all the data, write notes up for about even. I've got Timmy stuff coming in, and that's like a 6 hours of the day as well. So yeah, Tuesday's basically making sure that I've got the spreadsheet ready for Wednesday for not only the Patreon followers, but also about even, and I have the information to go to film first thing Wednesday morning with the boys. So yeah, that can sometimes be a late night because obviously got Timmy stuff in between, and then working where I can find free time on just finding all the most random stats that I can possibly do. And then obviously there's creating the content in between that too. So we get to Wednesday, and usually if I'm in bed before 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, I love that. But sometimes I think Tuesday just gone, I went to bed at 2 a.m, and it wasn't because I was watching the Olympics, unfortunately. And then woke up 6 o'clock to go to Alexandria and do the podcast. So I'll podcast from 8 till 10. I do another podcast with Natty from the Weekly Rubdown called Chase Your Losses. That goes for an hour or two around midday. So in between then doing work for Timmy. So that goes all the way till 6 p.m. And then on Thursday, I start writing stats watches on the Patreon analysis, and that's 4,000 words for the whole post, which I was saying before, like I used to do essays that were 1,500 words and couldn't find enough words for that. And here I am writing 4,000 words in like 4 hours. So that's definitely the biggest time consumer on Thursday. And on top of that, get to do the stuff for Timmy on the playbook. And then got the 15-minute segment on New Zealand radio with SENZ. So basically Monday till Thursday is a massive chunk of my time where I'm getting all the content I can out for everything that I do. And then Friday's a bit more laid back, but at the moment it's now starting to plan because, you know, I haven't planned at all my business. I haven't really, like only last week I went back and did my finances for the last 4 months because I've just been so full on. So Friday I try and kind of have that sort of moment for business planning. And then Saturday I usually play footy, so that kind of takes out half the day. And then Sunday, feet up, hopefully, and just relax. So Saturday and Sunday is a lot less work than what I had beforehand, I guess.
You mentioned the first couple of weeks, you're like, yeah, I've got all this time, right?
Yeah.
What was the day, because I still remember my first day, once I'd quit my job, and I sat down at my desk and I thought, holy shit, I've got like the whole day. Like, what do I do? Like, I mean, I've got a big list of things to do, but it's like, what was that moment like where you sat down day one at your desk and be like, holy crap, like this is life now? Yeah,
I think I just didn't know what to do, to be honest. I thought I had all the time in the world. At that point, I wasn't too sure how much work I was going to get from Timmy as well. So I was just completely like, I don't think I did much. I think I slept in till like 11 a.m. that first Monday. And just like did absolutely nothing. It was still hot, so I went to the beach, tan for a couple of hours, came back, did my posts, and then realized, oh shit, I'm so far. I think it was the Friday. I just looked back and was like, I've done absolutely bugger all from my business. I've just only done content, and then obviously Timmy's content on top. Like, it just didn't click to me. I kind of just went into that cycle where I slowly, tightened up and was like, okay. And now I've got like a full. It's so dumb because I came from agency work and I had all my notes and time management was perfect, and I just threw it out the window the moment I went on my own. I was like, don't need that anymore. Have you rebuilt that back in for you?
Yeah. It's one of the most important things when you're like your own business, because it's like time management, prioritization of tasks is the most important thing.
Literally.
It's like, that's a lesson I've learnt many times, but it's like, because when you're in business or you're doing something for yourself, there's always like, you never get to the end of your to-do list because there's all these things that are like nice to haves you'll do when you get time. So you're never going to get to the end of your massive to-do list. That never ends. But if you can make sure each day strategically, and like you'll have your workflow, which is like, from this time to this time, these are the sort of things locked in, to put out your content or whatever. But it's what you choose to spend your time on. You need to figure out and then commit to the things that are going to drive the biggest impact for my business, and being disciplined enough to do them and not get caught up with random things that can easily come and pull you and being reactive the whole time. You need to have times to be like strategic rather than just always reactive. So it's a lesson I've learned many times, but I want to get your thoughts as just someone that started an Instagram page off the cuff, didn't think too much about it in terms of turning it into a career. Since you've went full time, can be big or small, but what's some of the lessons you've learned that you can share with other people that are aspiring to do the same thing? You've just given us one, essentially. Time management, prioritization needs to be one. But are there any little lessons you've picked up along the way that you've had to, quickly sort out in order to continue growing and get the best out of yourself?
I think from a social media perspective in particular is not to fall for the bait, the comment bait that people come after you with.
That's a great one.
There's a lot of people who say stuff that they're just simply doing it to bait you. And if you comment back, you better have a good. I only do it if I have a good comeback that I know will get, likes, because I don't want to sound like an absolute dick just going after everyone. I know like there's a few creators who can do that and it just changes their personality. And you're like, mate, don't do it. Don't dig in. Because then you just see them in the replies just going bang, 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 trying to almost rectify it.
Yeah.
So I think if you're doing social media, don't read the comments. That is my big one. Unless it says, Nathan, you got this stat wrong, then listen to that. But other than that, that is one of the big things that you learn early, because I think there were a couple of days at the start where I'd get discouraged and never post. And I was like, I got a stat wrong, and just go like, oh, I'm an idiot. I'll never do that again. I'm never going to put up a stat again. Like, I feel so discouraged. But then there's other ones where like I've gone off, or like someone's put up a post and I've just gone after him and I've just ended up having 3 messages underneath, and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just painting my own personality as someone completely different to who I am. So that's probably another big discipline from a social media standpoint, is just don't really listen to what the people comment and
it's
stuff.
Like it's the same for me, and I have the same experience, but it can be really hard because like someone will comment something so stupid and they're wrong, and you want to like reply and like show them like, no, like this is actually the case. But it's like maybe 1 in 10% of the times you'll get them. Most of the time, if they're going to comment something like that, they're not here to have a logical conversation. No. They're just here, like they said, to bait you. You could come at them with facts and logic and reason, and they're going to somehow try and keep it going and inflame it, and it's just not worth it. So that's a really good one, I think, for a lot of people, because it's a mental game, right? Like, as well, to be consistent with something is really important. What about for you? One thing that I mentioned before, you were kind of like tracking stats and, turning off you're watching footy and you were like muting the commentary and commentating games yourself. So clearly like you're into stats and you're into sports. So this niche kind of found you very organically. But for those people that'll be like, Nathan, I really love what you've done. I want to go and do something for myself, but don't know where to start. Do you have any thoughts about how people could kind of decide on or figure out their own niche?
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely one thing to do with your niche or just starting any business is you got to check the market in the first place and see if there's a gap in it. I have a lot of people who've messaged me throughout who've just talked about, I want to start this page or this footy fan page. And I'm like, the Bulldogs, you're a Bulldogs fan. How many fan pages are there of the Bulldogs? Way too many. It's kind of like the boat's passed sort of thing. So it's kind of like if you have a niche, check the market. If there's nothing there, have a crack, go for it, because you could be the first of many people who follow you. You're going to get, and if you do go into that and you're successful, you're going to get competitors anywhere. Any market has competitors. I've got I don't call them competitors because I just see them as other accounts, but you got crazy rugby league fats, you got NRL odd stats who are all doing similar stats, and you want to be first to market before them. But sometimes they get it out before, and you just you work with it as it is what it is. I think big one is if you do have a niche, go after it. Like, try and give it all, because you're going to enjoy making the content or producing the product or service for that person. So you don't know if you don't try, I guess. I used to work at a golf tour and tournament operator who do like Kentucky tours for golf, and one of the slogans were, you don't know if you don't go, sort of thing. And I think I take that into my business world, going like, you never know how far you could possibly go. If you told me that I'd be sitting here talking about the success of Random Stats Guy 3 years ago, looking at a spreadsheet with just numbers and names, think you're crazy. I didn't think there was any room for that, but there's a market, and there's always a market. You just don't know that it exists.
That's so cool, man. And like doing like these radio gigs, and then doing like jumping on Timmy's podcast, or doing something with Guru or with the About Even Boys. It's like, these are some of like the biggest podcasts in the rugby league space. And then you've just come from nowhere and you're on, like, it's just
Like not a name, not
no
anybody
name, not
at
like
all.
a ex-player, obviously, you know, SG Ball star. But yeah, so it's just been like, fuck, like, don't, like, how much more evidence do we need? Like, go start that thing. And you're talking about hearing the story of when Guru went full time, and like just hearing that, like, one person do it made you think, well, you know what, there is possibility for me to go and do it. And that's a big part of why I have these podcasts. I think it's like really important, you know, for people to do that. But finding your own niche, yeah, I think where people can get discouraged as well, if they hear a podcast like this and be like, I'm going to do it for a business. This is like 3-4 years before it turned into a business, right? And like, that's where it's like finding your niche. I think if you're just getting started, unless you've got like a lot of business experience and you've been kind of self-employed for a while and you're going after the plan of attack, pick something and maybe don't put the expectation for it to turn into something that's monetized for the first 6 months, 12 months. See, you know, like you said, if you don't know, if you don't try it, you're never going to know. See if you enjoy it, see how people respond. But putting too much pressure on it from straight away, like if you're like, I need to quit my job after a year and you didn't do it, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
And that's so true. I think being in it for the long haul, planning to be in it for like 2 to 3 years and giving it a crack, not just going like, oh, I didn't get overnight success. Oh, this reel got 5 likes. Oh, you got to just work through it. As you mentioned, I didn't get monetized until this year. I started it way back in 2021. I think that people just got to stick with their habit. And, you know, you've had Denon on, you've had Guru on and Timmy on, and they kind of had the account going, but they just weren't for ages before. Like Guru was the first podcast I ever went on back in 2021. I jumped on back at home, and my Wi-Fi is the worst Wi-Fi. I think Optus, big shout out to them.
I've had that many problems
so
with
bad.
Optus, it's not fun.
But I used to break out of the conversation every time. I don't think I had one clean stream where I went the whole 20 minutes with Guru without me breaking off. And I was just like, fuck, well, this is my one last opportunity. It was crazy. But, you know, he at that time was coming home from teaching, and we'd do it after his work. And now to see how far he's gone, and then listening to the podcast you did with him, as you mentioned, inspired me that I can make more of just, you know, being an Instagram page.
Sure. Now he's got Kat working under him, and he's got the Patreon.
Yeah.
Speaking about being a full-time content creator, what are the sort of ways that you can monetize? Obviously for you, Patreon would be the main one, right? So how's your Patreon set up for the people that have kind of been seeing your stuff but haven't really looked into Patreon?
Yeah, so it's a bit interesting, Patreon. It's not kind of how you can't really customize it for the way you want it to.
Okay.
I'd love to do like a weekly plan, or like a plan that goes for like, you know, 8 months during the footy season, so people get bang for their buck. But instead it's kind of like a monthly subscription that I had to try and change from USD to AUD and all that sort of jazz. So it's a bit tough for the Australian. It's built for the US market, but it definitely works there. So I've got 3 tiers. I've just got a basic supporter tier, which is $2.50 a week, which eventuates to $10 a month, and then $20 a month for the stats watch I was talking about, where I write out all the key stats for the game, for try scorers, head-to-head team records, and then super coach watches as well. That's that $20 a month tier, and then the $40 a month tier is basically you see what I see, and I jump on about even and stuff like that. Which is like every player's stats, like their last 5 games, Supercoach averages, try scores, like where they score tries, what positions are scoring tries, all that jazz, and like the team points and all that records. That's the main tier at the moment. I think the pricing was a big part for me. I didn't know how to price it. I didn't want to be an absolute rip-off, but I also wanted to make sure that I was, you know, making, you know, money from doing it. And I thought that most people would jump to the $20 a week tier, but like 70% of my business is that main top tier, which is crazy. So
cool.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was like 1 month or 2 months in, it was already exceeding my previous salary. It was just crazy
man.
how like, yeah. I mean, like I hate calling myself a content creator. I despise it. Mum goes like, that's my son, he's a content creator. And I just go, oh, I just feel so, when I think of content creators, things like people doing dances in front of TikTok videos, and I'm like, I'm not that person. But it's something.
What would you
that
like to be called? A statistician, maybe?
That's what I say, statistician.
Yeah.
I think that's my LinkedIn, statistician at Random Stats Guy. So that's kind of what I want to be known for. But I know I am a content creator at the end of the game.
Like
but
content creator is like the evolution of the word influencer, though. So at least you're not
literally,
being called
yeah,
an influencer.
I know. That is true. I think it's a better version of influencer.
That's crazy, man. It just goes to show, and like, but yeah, within a couple months, you're earning more than you used to. Yeah, that's awesome, and that's what can happen, and why everyone should pursue it, particularly if it's a real passion of yours. But there was like 3 years of content before anything switched on. So I think pick a passion, go into it with a long-term view, and that's where you can really see the fruits to your labor. And then, so what are the other options? Obviously, you do a little bit of merch.
Yeah.
For those that have a podcast, obviously you can do like ad revenue and stuff, but you don't really run your own channels, right? Can you like collab with people and be like, hey, let's do a rev share of ad stuff? Is that sort of some of the stuff that you can do? Or?
I haven't looked too deep into that. I think next year, definitely I want to look into, creating my own sort of podcast or like little clip up. I don't think I can do like a 40-minute, an hour one. Definitely can't do a 4-hour bloke podcast. I'll never be able to do that. But just doing like little clip ups that are just easily consumable, kind of like what Guru did when he does those 10-minute ones, little tidbits. So that would be ideal. So yeah, I think that would be definitely something that I'd look to. But other than that, outside of the Patreon and the merch is good, but it's kind of like almost like you're chasing for break even, and then you're just getting whatever. It's definitely Patreon's big one. Paid partnerships also work as well. Did a beer ad with Strata beer with Reed Marnie. That was insane because we filmed that at I've forgotten the pub that we were filming at, but I used to go to that pub for work.
Wow. Is this in Sydney?
This is in Sydney, in Surrey Hills. I'm trying to figure out the name for it. It's going to kill Keg and Brew. That's
Keg
it.
and Brew.
So I went to lunch there. 4 months later, I walked in and did an ad there with like Reed Marnie, Mark Nawanga-Natazi, Charlie Gamble, and the other guy, and he's going to kill me for this, Christian Yasmin. So I did an ad with that, and I drove out of there going like, that's so crazy. Like I was 4 months ago having lunch with my digital marketing agency colleagues, and now I'm just gone out of there and done an ad with like Reed Marnie and stuff like in the space of 4 months. And that was, I got to try, and sometimes you get caught up in what you're doing, but that was like the pinch me moment, and like taking a step back going like, you've come so far in just 3 months. Imagine where this can take you in 3 years.
I know. So let's talk about the future. Let's say this all plays out the way you dream it in your head. What does that look like in 10, 15 years? What's on your plate?
I'd love to be able to, be a bit more on screen, in terms of like, if I could, be a background voice for providing stats during like rugby matches and stuff like that. You mentioned the commentary goal. Like I did a bit of commentating back in Queensland for the Shoot Shield version of rugby there, and as well as the AFL, the women's AFL competition, not AFLW, but the one below it for Queensland. So I spent like every Saturday for like 2 years trying to get some connections and try and, commentate my way. And I'd be driving up the M1 in Brisbane, from Gold Coast to Brisbane every week for free to do it. But, I kind of got 2 years in and was going absolutely nowhere. So sort of gave up that passion, but now that in some roundabout way, it's still an opportunity. So that'd be awesome.
As you mentioned before, like in terms of people coming to you, like, oh, Rando, I want to start a channel. Should I be a fan channel? Like, what are like, because obviously in like English, I also follow the Premier League. A lot of people doing like watch-alongs and stuff. Is there anyone doing like watch-alongs and that sort of stuff in rugby league now with like...
Yeah, I think the Hello Sport boys do it every...
Yeah,
they do it for Thursday night and stuff. But I don't think too many do. I mean, BKR Sport, who's another fan page, he does every game. He does NBA and EPL. Yeah. He wakes up at all sorts of hours and is really passionate and doing really well with that. But I think a watch-along would be good, but I don't want to be like that cringe guy who just commentates myself.
Watch-alongs though, and like when I look at the channels that have done well, again, it's like you can't watch along and just be calling it as it is. It's a personality game.
Yeah.
You got to be over the top reactions.
Yes.
You have to, truthful.
Yeah.
But you got to put a little bit of, you got
to put a mayo on.
Got to put a bit of mayo on it, because it's like, and that's just what works. There's opportunity out there. There's things you can do differently. But in terms of like growing the Random Stats Guy stuff, luckily I think Obviously, you mentioned there's some other pages with like rugby league or NRL in their name. You're a random stats guy, so it doesn't just have to be rugby league. You've obviously started doing the Olympics now. Crazy how good Australia is doing. I think we're in like third, 18 golds as of this morning for a country with 25 million people.
Yeah.
If they put a quota on it, like compared to like your population, you'd fucking win it every time. But what does the future look like for the stats that you're going to put out? Do you foresee yourself going to other sports under the one page, or would you like make separate pages for each sport? What do you think about that?
I think that's the crossroads that I'm at, where I know that if I post up a non-rugby league post, it'd get severely less engagement. The Olympics is good because all of Australia's behind it, and you got sports that people don't usually religiously follow who just go like, far out, I love discus or pole vault now. I've been a day one Nina Kennedy fan sort of thing. So I just kind of want to build up random stats guy, and I think almost teach people like different sports stats that they can go like, I'm a rugby league fan, but it's EPL season and my mates at work are talking about EPL, kind of like the rugby league stuff. Like this was for people who just wanted to go to a pub, they're watching rugby league, they know nothing about rugby league, but they put up my page and go like, oh yeah, like, oh, I heard the Roosters haven't beaten the Storm in 5 years. Yeah. And like, that's a conversation starter, and then they can kind of like hopefully swim a little bit more in that conversation. Yeah. So if I can do that for different sports and get people talking about that, like I've done with the Olympics, that is the goal. So
one thing that'll be hard is like NRL and AFL together.
Yes, it's absolutely.
Like fans, anything AFL, like,
yeah.
what the fuck?
Absolutely. Fuck, who cares? And all that goes back to the baiting. But you got to think that some people do like love that content.
For sure.
It's crazy. Like I did milestone games to start the season, and then it just kind of got a bit too much. I couldn't keep up, or I couldn't like post as regularly. But that was getting far less engagement than my usual post, but people would message me now and go like, hey, where's this post gone? Like, I really enjoyed it. And like, you just completely look past people who don't actually like I don't like content. Like I'd never double tap unless it's like really good. Like I just kind of just slip through all the reels and stuff like that. So I got to remember that people are just consuming the content without actually engaging with it as well.
I think as well, one of the things that I do like about the way the Instagram algorithms change, it felt like, say, 2-3 years ago, you post a couple of posts that don't perform well, and then Instagram starts thinking your whole account is crap, and then it puts down the reach of your whole account. And it can be very hard to like break that pattern. Nowadays, it feels more like it genuinely does judge every piece of content of itself. So it knows pretty quickly, hey, people are less interested, I'm not going to give it as much reach. But then the next post, if it's a banger, just because the last one didn't get many reach, it can still get a lot. Yeah. So I think not overjudging, like not having the fear around every piece of content you post not doing well is like, it's going to ruin my account.
Exactly. And you kind of like go back, I'm like, I'm not doing this. Well, I am trying to get more followers on board, but I'm just posting it just to show people that I'm doing a variety of sports, and hopefully that brings people in rather than them seeing my page being all rugby league and them going, I've got no interest in that. Yeah. So anyway, I can pull different people in. Like I was doing tennis content on my TikTok and got a huge following off the back of that, whereas I don't usually post about tennis unless it's the Australian Open, obviously. So yeah, I think like I feel like I can pull crowds together, and I'm doing like analysis on EPL, NFL and NBA to keep the Patreon ticking over. Yeah. So, and I'm learning those sports too. I'm not a big EPL fan. Like, last time I was thinking about Man United was when I had FIFA 09. So just trying to be able to grow in that case and just learning off the back of that as well.
And so for your subscribers, as you mentioned, 70% of the top tier, which is really impressive. For your rugby league ones, like, do you feel like most of them are getting on because they want it to use for punting, or they're like a lot of super coach
It is mainly
people?
Punting. Which I don't mind, like stats and punting, I guess, goes
like
hand
you'd rather
in hand.
if someone's going to punt, do it with a bit of data behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah. Obviously gamble responsibly, and none of the stuff that I do is actual advice. You just pick it on your own.
Yeah, of course.
Which is also shadowy waters that I, just want to make sure that people are like, no, and everyone's got their heads switched on in the Patreon, which is good. Yeah. So mainly it is for punting.
Yeah. I saw a stat, speaking of the Olympics and obviously Bulldogs, saw a stat. What is it? Every year that the Australian men's team has won gold in the men's team pursuit, Bulldogs have won the grand final. And we won it this year.
And it's
again.
The same 20-year cycle as well as the grand final stuff, which is absolutely crazy.
Crazy, right? And like at the start of the year, I would have been like, because some Bulldogs groups, you see that stuff. You're like, 94 lost, 04 won, 2014 we lost. I was at that grand final that stung. And now it's like, oh, like there's a little bit. So you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah,
You know what I
literally.
mean? Like-
And then but there's more. It's just like people think that was like a long bow, but like it's just starting to like build up. I think like Spain winning the Euros was a tease. Different tennis players winning the Grand Slam on top of that. It's just crazy how it's like aligning again.
It's so
weird.
crazy, dude. If it
And the Bulldogs are
happens-
performing well. It's not like the Bulldogs
I
are
know.
last and we're talking about this.
Like I
It's
got to try and like
crazy.
take my Bulldogs bias out of it, right? But if we haven't been in the finals for a long time.
Yeah.
Like you can like identify teams. I feel like if Bulldogs weren't my team, obviously it's very hard to win it outside the top 4. But if there was one team that worried me from like from 5 to 8, I feel like it would be Bulldogs because we've got that gritty defense. We could defend our way to a win. Sometimes our attack clicks, sometimes it doesn't. But it's like, I feel like if you're a top 4 team, you wouldn't want to cop us in week 2 if you lost.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
I don't know,
you
man.
wouldn't want to copy you guys at home, that's for sure.
Well,
you
we're
guys
still
at home are a
undefeated at
different
home.
beast. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It's absolutely crazy.
Speaking of Supercoach, I was talking to Tim about it. Like I was last week, had to pick: do I bring in Val or do I bring in Connor Tracy off the back of that like crazy performance? And I had Connor Tracy in my team the whole year, and I did a little bit of research to be proud. It's not really very deep research, but Bulldogs had lost 9 games in a row against Canberra.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit, I better reverse that. Got a 4-point win. But speaking of these stats, do you have like a favorite stat from your whole Random Stats Guy career that stands out for you?
My favourite stat of all is the fact that no team in history has ever won the comp after conceding 50 points.
Okay, yeah, that's the big
and
one.
The best part about that stat, not only does it stand the whole test of time, is that the most points conceded by a team is 49. So it is literally 50
It's
is
the breaking
it's the
point.
breaking point. It's the break even. It is. That's what's so crazy about that stat that I love.
That's crazy. And what any rogue takes for getting in or missing out on top 4 or top 8? What are your thoughts? Anything?
Oh, rogue
against the grain
takes.
there?
Rogue takes. Who misses the top 8? I think the top 8 is as it is. It will stay. I don't think anyone's dropping out. I feel so sorry for the Dolphins. I really wanted them to make the 8 this year, but they've fallen off the grid again. I don't see them coming back, but I think the 8 is how you see it. I think the Dragons and Bulldogs slip in.
Well, it's a massive game this week. It's like another it's like a 4 points game. Like
Literally, it's double points basically for them.
I was watching the Bulldogs Cowboys game I was in Bali.
Yeah.
I was watching it and like we were leading for a good amount of the game and then just like losing that game. If we had beat you then, we have a 4-point gap between us. We're equal with Sharks in the top 4. Those like sliding doors moments. It's like, yeah, man. Anyway, we could talk about footy for hours, but I want to start to wrap this up now. As I said, like, got so much you can expand to in terms of different sports, different things you want to get on your dream, what this looks like over the next 10, 15 years. But for the people that have been seeing you around on popping up on different podcasts and they've been sort of like in your atmosphere for the last year or so, what can people expect to see out of you for the next 12 months? And then where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, I think diversity, as we were talking about, into different sports. Obviously, being out of my own, working with Timmy, Supercoach season ends in September.
Mm-hmm.
So more reliant on trying to monetize Rando for real. So that's where I'm going into EPL, NFL, NBA, summer of cricket and stuff like that. So we'll be doing a huge deep dive like I've done from the rugby league perspective. So it won't just be stats that I find in articles that pop up. It'd be more stats that I find homegrown from my own research, like I've done with my rugby league world. So more diversity in the stats moving forward, and definitely for football, NFL and soccer fans, it'll be plenty of stats there. And you can find me Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We're on Instagram for real. I'm Nathan Corbett now, not Rando, which is really annoying me. I really wanted to keep Rando with the blue tick, but
Rando fits so well.
I know.
As well.
I'm going to try and 5 days later, try and check, because once you change your name again, you have to go through the verification.
Process.
Crazy. It's so stupid. But yeah, hopefully one day they make it for creators.
Yeah.
They say it's in beta. It's been in beta for a year and a half. So
yeah, same as TikTok Shop was going to come to Australia last year. It's
literally, where are we? So yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but the Patreon's definitely the big one. Just Random Stats Guy Patreon should come up straight number 1 on Google.
Love it. Rando, Nathan, Random Stats Guy, whatever you want to call you. Thanks for coming in, man. Really appreciate it. Love your work. Keep going. It's just the start for you. I know that. And I think should be an inspiration to anyone else who has their own interesting niche sort of passion. Just start, figure it out. Your life could be like Nathan's.
Absolutely. Ordinary person right here. Nothing special. No accolades or anything. Just kind of started from scratch.
And humble too. Look at him. Cheers, brother. Appreciate you coming in.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode or you got something out of it, Do yourself a favor, do me a favor, do your friends a favor and share this with them, and they can come along on this journey with us. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.